Really faint memory. Was around 5 to 7 years old, rough estimate. My memory is absolute dog crap, but things like this stay with me forever. Riding in the back of my mom's car with sis, cousin, and aunt in the passenger seat. Starry night, good vibes. Suddenly blinded by a white flash, literally see nothing but white. For about 2 seconds I can hear everyone else screaming and freaking out about it. Then nothing. Everything after that, including basic childhood memories up to my 10th birthday, feel as if they've been erased. Tried many times to ask mom or sis if they remember that night. They deny it outright or just act like I didn't say anything and change the subject. Still have no idea what the light could have been. Never saw or heard of anything similar to it ever again.
Around 7 to 8 and riding home with dad. Both parents worked opposite shifts. He worked till night and mom worked graveyard at a hospital. Mom would bring me to dad's work so he could take me home for her and watch me. Always get a bit creeped out since his work was in a strange remote area next to a weird forest, land, and cows. Riding home one night with him and staring out of a window. Lots of deer start bolting across the road ahead and he has to stop. Remember almost crying since it startled me and some of the deer had blood on them. Suddenly scream and see weird lights in the sky. Dad sees them. Not a plane and just hovering above the forest the deers ran out of. Remember a bright pulse and then my dad floors it and clips a deer. Bumper is bent and rubbing the tire, making an awful noise. Dad stops after a bit to quickly bend it out and stop the noise. When we get home he is shaking and barely speaks. Won't talk about it even today.
Posted this in another thread, it's sorta innawoods related. I'm driving my family through the middle of nowhere. Very misty night and cloudy, so no stars. Country road with no lights. Dad sitting next to me, talking to mom in the back. Siblings are asleep in the back as well. See someone walking off to the side of the road a ways down. Sorta weird for it being so late, but I figure that is just the city boy in me speaking. Think nothing of it past that. As we get closer to the person, suddenly a flash of light in front of the car. Blindingly bright, to the point where I saw nothing but a greenish white light for a solid 3 to 4 seconds. All electronics go out. Engine is still going, but headlights, A/C, dashboard, radio, head unit, etc. are gone. And for her a car doesn't run without electricity, I know. Mom breaks out praying. Absolutely no light, so I start slowing down to stop. Dad says keep going. What, Dad? Wave. The road was dead straight, so I just kept going. About 2 minutes later all the electronics started turning on slowly. The trip was pretty much uneventful after that.
Late night driving. Wyoming between nowhere and nowhere. Too damn late. I'm a long ways from anywhere and nodding off. I park at a rest area. Lean back to get some sleep. Next thing I know, the car is shaking. I automatically slam on the brake. The shaking stops. It's a clear, moonlit night. There's nothing to see. Also, I notice that the parking brake is set. I get out. Again, nothing to see. Except for one thing I'm not parked as I remembered parking. As near as I can tell, I'm in the same spot. But the car is turned around 180 degrees. Still don't know what to think about that one.
Be something between 8 to 10 years old. Always hid out behind this old barn where I lived with cousin, constantly getting into dumb shit. Stick fighting in particular. We would pretend they were swords and that we were training. Hill behind the barn, and there's this nice little ditch for us to square up in to do battle. En garde you bitch. As I step towards him, I see this odd light out of the corner of my eye and I just stop walking at him and lower the stick. I must have been gaping like a fool because he sees me staring at something and follows suit. Floating ball of light hanging out over to my left just above the hill. Might have been watching us, or completely unaware / unconcerned with our presence. All sensors reading fuckno.jpg. Ball floats up a good 4 to 5 feet in the air, then shoots straight into the hill and vanishes. I have seen nothing in my life that moved anything like that since. I bust ass back to my house as fast as I can with my cousin right behind me. We end up in the basement of the house I lived in, and we discuss whatever the fuck it was. Still recall it as the ghost rabbit at parties when we're drunk, even though we're both well aware that was no rabbit. Convinced now it was a will-o'-the-wisp.
A little over 2 years old, visiting my grandparent. Uncle retired from Air Force was also there. Mom had a glass of water with ice. Take a piece of ice without them looking, put it in my mouth and choke on it. Memory is of me is walking to my grandparents' bathroom, looking out their window. Window is about 5 feet up, I'm not even close enough to look out the window. Window is also glazed so you cannot see completely out or inside. While looking out their window I see a black arch above the highway facing the window, in the sky. Something comes floating or flying out of the arch. This alien-looking olive green being comes to the window and speaks to me telepathically. It is not time. Feel this sense of comfort wash over me. Look to the kitchen and I see myself being over the sink, held by my uncle who is trying to dislodge the ice cube I am choking on by patting on my back. Go back to my body to see myself coughing out the ice cube. This memory has stuck with me for nearly 30 years. I cannot explain it and the visual memory of it is burned into my mind. I remember being in kindergarten and having a fascination with UFOs, aliens, and the paranormal. Who knew elementary school libraries had these types of books? Still don't completely understand why it happened, but that alien's face is so vivid, I wish I could draw it. It was again like I said, dark olive green, 2 eyes, wrinkled around the mouth, 2 holes for nostrils, no ears. Smaller as well.
Frick, frick, frick. I yell out, sweat pouring down my face as I melt away from the stress of the situation. There is my mother, my perfect, caring and understanding mother, lying on the floor semi-conscious after the nasty fall she just had. I turn her over to lay her on her back and I immediately notice the swelling. She must have hit her head on the floor when she face planted under the dining room table. The blood is overwhelming the white tile floor, flowing steadily from a large gash on the left side of her neck. She must have caught the corner of the glass tabletop. You know I always stack school books on those tiles over there. That was so stupid and clumsy, Mom. I can't stop looking at the gash in her neck. The swelling has spread across her forehead so it looks to be evenly distributed. But that gash, on the one side of her neck, it just isn't right. She knows I can't be put in situations like this, never been able to handle them well at all. I love my mother dearly and I can't just watch her bleed out of that gash. I have got to do something. Mom, listen to me, you have got to stay still. Do you understand? This may hurt a bit but you cannot move or it is just going to be worse. I'll be right back. I run to the kitchen, 2, 3, 2 and click the light switch 6 times. As I approach the knife stand, I make sure to rub the green wall counterclockwise 24 times and clockwise 24 times before I lift every knife in the block until I settle on the one that feels the best, the paring knife. I skip 2 tiles left, 3 tiles forward and 2 tiles right until I am even with my mother. As I bend down over her, I make sure that I even up the blade opposite her neck from the existing gash. Mom, quit moving, you are going to mess up my line. Once it is perfectly symmetrical, I'll get you a towel and call the ambulance, okay? Stay calm.
The neighbor was a weird man, he was reclusive and never really spoke to anyone. Tom liked to scare me by saying he must be a murderer, that he always kept to himself so people wouldn't catch on. I didn't like the jokes and would tell him off, the neighbor was probably just shy. Although I got mad at the jokes, I had to admit, the neighbor did make me uncomfortable. Tom worked a mix of day and night shifts, tonight happened to be one of his night shifts. I don't like the idea of being home alone at night, everything seems more sinister, but I tend to shake these feelings by watching some TV and going to bed. I was jolted awake by a loud noise, maybe Tom had come home? I looked at my clock and saw it was 2:30 in the morning. Panic rose, my mind was racing and I didn't know what to think. There was only 2 facts that kept repeating in my mind, Tom didn't finish work till 6 and that noise came from inside the house. I quickly looked out the second-story bedroom window to the driveway below in case he did come back early. His car wasn't there, but what I saw made my blood run cold. It was my neighbor breaking into my house. I grabbed my phone and called the police. I waited in my room, too scared to go downstairs, and prayed the police would come in time. They did. They caught him. I was still in my bedroom, watching from my window as they took him to the car. He was struggling and screaming. He really was a madman. You don't understand. He yelled. I saw someone else go in the house. As my brain was processing his meaning, I heard my bedroom door shut behind me.
When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. I know, worst meme ever, but seriously, our local high school hadn't had a marching band for something like 23 years, so this was a big occasion. And it wasn't really a city, I guess, but I guess it was downtown. So anyway, there we were, lining Main Street, and here came the Easter parade down the street, and there was our school's band. They had just gotten back from a band competition the night before, and you'd think they'd be too tired after that, but they played really well. I mean, I was just a little kid, and I was all trying to be big and bad at that age and listened to Def Leppard. Hey, this was the 80s after all. But I had to admit, they were really good. The brass resonated into my soul. The woodwinds made my ears hungry for more. And the drummers were the best I have ever heard to this day. Everyone cheered. The whole parade came past us and turned a corner. And around that corner, where there was not much of a crowd, the music suddenly stopped. The people nearest that corner began to peer around and then went around. Gradually, curiosity got the better of the rest of the crowd, and we all began to funnel over toward that section to see what was going on. When we got there, the story began to get passed back to us through the crowd. Nobody saw it happen, or at least how it happened. The band simply disappeared. They didn't walk away. They were just gone. The instruments were gone. No drums, no drumsticks, no hats, no nothing left behind. Just nothing. We all thought it was a grand trick of some kind of incredible showmanship. Later that afternoon, Sheriff Buck got the call from 3 counties over, positively identifying the bus that had collided with a drunk driver the night before and swerved off the road and into the deep ravine, killing everyone aboard. The bus with our local high school's marching band. If you can find our town, no one will ever admit that this happened.
Look behind you. What do you see? Invariably, there will be a wall somewhere in your view. Now stare deeply into the space on the wall that lines up best with your eyes. Nothing will happen, but make sure you are clear on where this particular spot is. That spot contains all the negativity in your mind. Whenever you are on your computer, reading scary stories or whatever you do, sometimes you will get spooked. What do you do when this happens? You check behind you. That's what you do. As you read this now, a feeling of dread will come over you. Check the spot. Nothing again, huh? That's because right now, all the evil is locked safely in your mind. Some people, upon learning of this negative spot, resolve to remove the spot in an attempt to remove the negative energy. This is a grave mistake. You must never let harm come to this spot. If you do, you will have released the energy. Now when you sit at your computer at night, you will feel chills even in the summertime. The feeling of dread that only presented itself when you were genuinely scared will now hang in the air constantly. Within a week you and your loved ones will have a string of bad luck. Within a month your computer will begin to act erratic and eventually break down. On the anniversary of the spot's destruction, you will dream of your most horrible fears. The dream will seem to go on forever, and when you wake up you will notice your vision has darkened. Every year on the same day, the dream will repeat itself, and your vision will grow darker and darker. After you go completely blind, don't ever turn your back on that spot again. That is, if you can still tell where it is.
The Lang family. David Lang's 2 children, George, 8, and Sarah, 11, were playing in the yard when Lang and his wife came out of the vine-covered brick house. He spoke to the children and then started walking out across the pasture. At this time, Judge August Peck and Lang's brother-in-law came driving up the lane in a buggy. The judge saw Lang in the field and was about to call out to him when it happened. Lang vanished from the face of the earth. 1 minute he was standing in an open field with no trees, stones, or fences. The next, he was simply gone. Lang's wife and the 2 men immediately ran to the spot to check that he might have fallen through a hole in the ground. There was no such hole. MRS. Lang went hysterical and was taken into the house. Neighbors were called out to help, scores of people searched the field, but to no avail. A surveyor and geologist examined the field and found limestone bedrock a few feet underground without a single fracture in it. For a month the search carried on. All the Lang servants quit in fear. A year later, the grass where Lang was standing had grown high and thick in a circle 20 in diameter. No farm animal would graze there, and it seemed free of insects. One day in August, 1881, Sarah and George approached the green circle and called out, "Father, are you anywhere around?" They repeated the question 4 times. Hearing no answer, they began to walk away when they heard a faint cry for help from out of nowhere. Quickly, the children ran to get their mother and pulled her outside. They called to their father again, and he answered. For several days, the family returned, and each day when they called, the answering voice became fainter, until finally there was no response at all.
If you stand alone at the corner of Church Street and Market Street in Charleston, South Carolina at 3 a.m., you see a man coming down Church Street wearing a black hat and black cape with stringy white hair and weathered skin. He'll stop at one of the 2 corners directly across from where you are standing and start to walk the corner directly opposite from where he is standing. When he reaches about halfway, dead center of the intersection, and nobody else has arrived, he'll stop, turn, and look directly at you. If you do not blink for roughly 20 to 30 seconds, he'll tip his hat to you and walk along his way, disappearing into the dark shadows of the trees that line the streets. Nobody knows what happens if you follow him. If you do blink before he tips his hat, the very first thing you will see is the man standing directly in front of you. He'll grin maliciously at you and draw a blade hidden in the shaft of the cane and slash you across your throat, but you will not feel a thing. You will, however, pass out and remain in a comatose state until the sun rises over the horizon. For the next 6 nights, you will have a recurring dream of the man walking down the street, appearing suddenly before you, and slashing your throat. On the 7th night, the events will replay the same up until he stops in the middle of the intersection. At this point, he'll say, "It's been fun playing with you, boy, but now it's time for you to go. Don't ever let me see you again." He'll then tip his hat and walk away before you wake up. Nobody knows what happens if you visit the corner a second time.
Asleep. I dabbed it with 1 finger, momentarily ridding my pinky of that numb feeling. It didn't stir. I positioned myself horizontally above it, carefully hovering near the skin without touching it. Then I took my foot and carefully slipped it in. I could feel it again, at last. The other foot, then, and calves next, followed by knees, then thighs, and hips. It began shaking. In my excitement, I had failed to be careful. I stopped going in, but the thing's spasms got stronger. I needed to finish pulling myself in or risk fading away completely. I shoved my abdomen in, prompting grand, jerking motions from the host. Chest, intact and unstained, I stole a breath for what seemed like the first time in years. Arms, both at the same time, I clutched the ends of the bed to keep the thing still. Neck, I feel an enormous crick but I can't fix it just yet, 1 more piece left. Head. The shaking stops, and I let go of the bed. These pieces, they're all mine now, I can live again. Whatever horrid, ungrateful thing had once inhabited this body was a dull scream in the back of my new head. I twisted my neck to one side to hear a satisfying crack and feel sweet relief. I smiled. I could do anything in this body. No one ever gives his origin much thought, so perhaps we can give him a story. We'll begin it with the long curling locks that frame his face like a portrait. He is handsome but humble, speaks little of himself, and is unflinchingly truthful at all times. Naturally, the ladies of the land are quite taken with him, and the queen most of all. She makes him her lover, thrilled to be called beautiful by such an honest young man. She is a vain queen, though, known to summon dark powers in hopes of warding off age. After gifting her lover with eternal youth, she discovers one cannot give such gifts to oneself. When she tries, the dark powers rebound upon her, twisting her. Not outwardly, but her heart is turned cold, and if ever she looks at her own reflection, her vision is made to fracture and facet like that of a greedy fly. Unable to see the truth with her own eyes now, the more her lover calls her beautiful, the more she suspects he is lying. Eventually, in a fit of anger at his mockery, she pushes our hero from a tower window. Her bewitchments ensure he does not die, but 1,000 shards of glass pierce his body and he shatters every bone as he crashes through the mirrored dome above her throne room and falls to its marble floor. The spiteful queen has him run through with a hook and hung on a wall to set an example, and it's only then, when she catches sight of her many reflections in the jagged glass splinters impaling his limp form, that she sees she is still beautiful. And forever after, she will believe him when she asks, "Who is the fairest in the land?" He will answer with honesty, as he always has.
Some people have been known to communicate with death. There is no way for you to reach him, he must come to you. You have no control over whether he does or not. One day, however, you may be approached by him. It will happen when you are alone, perhaps walking down a lonely country road after someone you love has just died. You will hear the sounds of a noisy automobile that will slowly grow louder and louder. If you turn around, you will see an old, rusty green truck approaching. If you do not turn, you won't see the truck before it reaches you. And reach you it will. A man will get out of the truck, a tall man with his eyes hidden in the shadows of an old baseball cap. He will introduce himself as Death and you will know that this is true. Death will give you the opportunity to go down into hell with him and reclaim a lost soul. If you decline, he will nod politely and go on his way. You will live out the rest of your life normally, but wonder every day what could have been. If you accept his offer, you will descend through a mad underworld before battling through a hellish labyrinth for the chance to reclaim a lost soul. Nobody knows what happens if you win. Be 8 or 9. Hanging out at friend's house for sleepover. She lives in this big old colonial house. Has this attic type room that's pretty big and has been repurposed into playroom. We go into closet in playroom to get out some video games. Notice that there's a small door in back of closet that we've never seen before. Fuck yeah, secret passage. We open door and go in. Leads to small room with portrait of man in mid 1700s looking clothing on wall. Spooks us a little but we decide to turn it into a secret clubhouse, put some toys in there. Go outside to play. Come back inside a few hours later. Door is not there anymore. Our toys are lost for eternity.
B16. In the kitchen helping mom with housekeeping because I'm a big mama's boy. So I'm sorting Tupperware and food cans on cabinets. Holy shit damn. AHH. I feel this piercing sensation all over my body, like when you get a cramp on your leg but it's everywhere. I'm down in the floor screaming in pain, scaring my mom who was right next to me. Remain like this for a few minutes, then the pain lessened slightly by second. I was red all over, looked like I got a really bad sunburn. On some spots where the cramping felt the worst the redness was more intense, it hurt to touch there. Mom took me to clinic, they said it was just a sunburn. No way that could happen in a matter of seconds. I didn't go to hospital because my family couldn't afford it. Never found out what the hell that was.
14 to 15 years old. Take a 4-hour nap and wake up extra early on the weekend to play video games around 2 to 3 a.m. in the basement. Decide to go wash my face to wake myself up a bit after an hour or two in playing Laws OOT in the basement washroom. Look up after the initial rinse and there was a gray standing behind me according to the mirror. It was in the corner by the toilet observing me. I stare back silently in awe and fear. Blinking a few times to see if I was really seeing this. Decide to turn around and see it for myself. Gone.jpg. Shiver and leave the bathroom and the basement for the rest of the morning and chill upstairs. Upon looking back at this instance, I wish I had tried to communicate with it calmly when I was blinking instead of trying to justify its existence by turning around. Be me. Few years back. Way past midnight. Trying to sleep. Have big mirror that's on the side of the bed. Looking into the mirror. Close my eyes. Open them again. Not myself, the one I see on the mirror. Bright red eyes looking back instead of mine. A smile that's way bigger than my mouth. Has sharp teeth. Almost shit my pants moment. Sit on the bed scared. Me on the mirror again. Step up immediately and turn on the light. Thinking I would not be able to sleep anyway. Go to the bathroom to wash my face. Using the towel to dry my face. Cover my eyes with towel while drying. Uncover them. For an instant I see same scary face on bathroom mirror. Couldn't sleep nor look at mirrors for few days. Still scared of looking myself in mirrors till this day. Still wanting to nuke my entire house from orbit.
House sitting for my grandmother about 10 years ago. Basically get to live there for free while she's on vacation, which is heaven for a poor student like myself. One night as I'm leaving the bathroom, I hear a voice from her bedroom. "Anon, please help me, Anon. Oh fuck, my grandmother is hurt." Instincts are full drive, race for the bedroom, stop myself just inches from opening the door. Realized she doesn't come home till the next day. Ask through the door why I didn't hear her come in. Long pause, "Help, Anon. Please come in here." Scared out of my fucking mind at this point, turn and book it out of the house, absently noting her car wasn't in the garage on the way out. Call police at neighbors, they search the place but find nothing unusual. The next day I stay just long enough to grab my things and get the fuck out of there. Nobody believes me when I tell them this story, they all think it's the hilarious story of when Anon thought he heard something and called the cops. My grandmother lived another 7 years before dying peacefully in her sleep. I've never gone into that house again. Well, since we can have kind of paranormal stuff, here's one that happened to my mom. Was about 16. Her mom, my grandma, died suddenly. She was catching a train. Train enters tunnel. She sees her mom in the reflection and through the darkness. Reaching out her hand and mouthing something. Looks like "come with me." Gets cold. Starts to reach out. Feels an electric shock. Retracts her hand. Train leaves tunnel and she never sees her again. My mom was really affected by my grandma's death. She'll suddenly wake up from a dream every now and then and the first she says is "mommy." It's rather sad, but I don't know how to help. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if she had gone with her mother, if anything would have happened at all, or maybe if she was dreaming.